All right, let's get started. I'm Brandon Steck. I'm Director of Marketing for GiveSmart. And I'm really excited to have everyone here for our new series. It's a new webinar system and a new series for us, the Fundraising Success Blueprint. We're very excited to share and go in depth on, really what we're kind of calling 12 elements or 12 pieces to the blueprint that will really lead to some success in fundraising, especially in our new normal today and how we go forward. So I'm really excited to kick off the series here with some terrific panelists. We're big believers in hearing from those that are in the marketplace, in the weeds of doing the fundraising, and we have some really terrific fundraisers here gathered together, some familiar faces, and really excited to share that. So we're going to jump in, but our panelists today, let's get going. So we've got Ann Sturgis from our development manager from Children's Home of Northern Kentucky, as well as a couple other organizations I know have worked with us. We've got Ashley Emmert from Brookwood in Georgetown, a graphic designer there, and then Kaya Nilsson from the Humane Society of Utah, who's event and merchandise manager for them. One really exciting thing is we're pretty much across the globe here, from Utah to Texas to Kentucky. So really excited to get some information out there from really across the country. But thank you all for joining. I'm really proud of the work that we do, but really the work that you do is what makes the difference. So really kudos to you guys, a true A team in fundraising. Today, our call, we're going to go through our topic of deciding if you're going to go virtual or hybrid and how you come to that decision. So our three terrific panelists are going to be the primary speakers. You'll hear from me as I try to keep things moving along, but the real goal is to try and help answer that question and drill into what are the best things to consider and answer those questions. So here's the agenda. This is a brief agenda as opposed to some of our other webinars. There's going to be much less slides and much more of you seeing us on video. So we'll have some conversations going rather than just a presentation on there, and hopefully we can get some questions going as well. So we'll start with definitions. What is virtual? What is hybrid? So when we talk about those things, everyone feels comfortable knowing what we're talking about. Making the decision, that's the key part, right? What are the key things to consider? How did the three ladies go about making their decisions? And then we'll share some examples directly from each organization and what they went forward from. And then we're gonna leave some time for questions. At the end, we will try to address those, but throughout, if you have a question, there's a Q&A box on the panel, on the control panel there. If you go in, click Q&A and drop a question in there. We do have Patrick, excuse me, Patrick and Susanna on the behind the scenes, trying to make sure we are responding to chats and answering your questions as we go. So we will get jumping in here. Last thing, because we have not used Zoom webinars in the past, just want to call out a couple things. To see all the panelists, use the gallery mode. So if you go up to the top right corner, I believe, you can select view and change that to gallery mode. So you can see everyone at once rather than just my smiling face when I'm talking. If you have a question, please put it in the Q&A section. We will try to get to all the questions and address those. And if your computer audio is not clear for any reason, there is a way to dial in by phone. So please feel free to do so. All right. We're going to start things off. We like to ask a question. So we have a poll today for 2021. For your 2021 fundraisers. Are you leaning towards all virtual, all hybrid campaigns, some virtual and some live, or all in-person campaigns, or we don't have an idea, which is totally okay. So we'll give everyone a minute or two to fill those in there. Everyone's on top of it. These are coming in fast. So we'll wait another 10 seconds or so. All right, looks like we'll cut it off there. All right, so hopefully, Ann, Kaya, you're shaking your head so you can see the results. Perfect. So some virtual and some live, very interesting. We will be talking about that. Some virtual and some live is almost basically a hybrid, but also probably looking at maybe some things in the fall. So we'll definitely try and address some of that. And for those that don't have any idea, we're going to hopefully help you there. That is the goal as we get jumping into it. So let me get the poll out of the way here, and we will get going. So definitions of virtual, hybrid, and then we've got one more here, online. So real quick, we're going to use these terms so much, so I wanted to give you a little bit of a sense of what we're going to talk about. So online fundraising, you'll sometimes hear that. We have an example we're going to share of an online fundraiser that could be done virtually as well. The most common type of fundraising scenario where really you're doing it solely digitally and it's not tied to a live program, live stream, or guest in a physical location. A virtual fundraiser would be a campaign or an event where the audience is exclusively virtual, like we all are today. This would be a virtual event. And you have a live program tied to that and or recorded content. And then finally, the hybrid fundraiser is there's a portion of your audience, regardless of the size, that's physically on site, and the other portion is online, remote, or virtual. So those are the three scenarios. And from there is I'm going to stop sharing and we're going to have more of a conversation. So less from me and more from the team. I'm going to start with Kaya and we're going to talk a little bit about, your last year. I know we've talked about some of the virtual fundraisers you've done. If you can just kind of dive into what's Humane Society of Utah done lately virtually and kind of how did you guys come to that decision?
Yeah, I mean, our last big event that we did all virtual was our gala in December, which is normally not virtual. We had scheduled it for May of 2020, and then in March, we decided that we would push it back to August because obviously by August, everything would be fine. And then come June, we decided that it wasn't going to be, so we pushed it back again to December and decided to go virtual. It was not an easy decision. Obviously, we wanted to keep everybody safe, so we made that choice to go totally virtual, and it was super easy on GiveSmart because our donors were used to that platform and we streamed everything through our GiveSmart page and it went very smoothly. We had way more engagement than we normally would have had from a live audience that, they're sitting in the back and they can't necessarily participate. And so I was really happy with how it went. We will definitely be doing a hybrid aspect in our gala this year.
That's awesome. And so that was a gala style. Did you have live content or did you have mostly recorded?
It was about half and half. So we did pre-recorded videos with our staff to show kind of the behind the scenes at the shelter and different things that people normally wouldn't get to see. And then our auctioneer was all live. So that was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. A lot of people ask when you say the staff, is it 20, 30 people who are all hands on deck? What size staff were you kind of working with and how did you guys kind of make the decision to have recorded versus live, and what were those aspects?
Yeah, we decided we had about four or six people highlighted in the pre-recorded portion of the show. Obviously it took a lot more staff behind the scenes to get all that done with scheduling the recordings and making sure all that worked. But we decided we wanted to highlight kind of the main people in our organization, our executive director, our director of shelter operations, those people that work behind the scenes regularly, but do so much for the organization. And maybe these guests would not normally get to meet. So that's who we chose to be the pre-recorded part of our gala.
Awesome. And the big question is, was this a successful gala? But we're going to talk in more detail and show the example. So I know people are already asking, did you feel it was successful? I know you've touched on some of that. Did you do a live auction through this or was it a silent auction?
We did both. We opened up our silent auction about a week before, which we've never done and was super successful. We'll definitely do that again. And then we did the live auction portion, things like trips and all the fun things that people normally want, but with extended deadlines. And definitely having our auctioneer, his energy was fabulous. We could not have done it without him. So he did a great job with the live auction and I was very happy with how that went. So yes, we did both.
That's awesome. All right, I'm going to toss to Ashley because I know Ashley a month ago, it was pretty recent, had a really fun hybrid event go on. We did a jam session. I know you and Susanna teamed up for that, but let's tell us a little bit about how you guys made the decision to be more hybrid than virtual.
Yes. So the timeline of our event every year is the beginning of March. So for our 2019 event, we were able to have it. And then, within a week was when shelter in place started happening. So we got in right at the last minute to keep our event kind of as it had been in years past. And so for us, we're planning it, almost a year out for the following year. And yeah, similar to what Kai was saying, like we just kind of assume like, oh, well, by March, like it'll be fine. We can do our event as we've done in the past. And so that's kind of how we started planning. And then as it got closer, we realized we need to do some things differently. We need to add in some other elements because not everybody, well, first of all, we didn't know, like with the regulations, will we be allowed to be in person? And then if so, like obviously it would be limited and what the venue would allow. So then, we didn't want to go completely virtual just because the one of the biggest things about our event that's unique is that all of our silent auction items are pieces of art that are one of a kind and created by our community of adults with special needs. So you just really need to see that in person to get the full experience. And so we just kind of came up with, well, what if we figure out a hybrid, which I didn't know that was like a normal term. That's what we started calling it. And now it's a thing. So people could come view the art in person by appointment. And then we would send them home with a family meal and a pie from our cafe that they could still have a dinner and watch the live stream from their house, but still have a little bit of that in-person experience, but on a smaller scale and stagger that throughout the day.
That's awesome. And yeah, like you said, the term hybrid has almost been, adjusted from the cars, right? Like we all started using this term last year as we thought, okay, we can go back to some type of live component. Did you have, did you have, some legal waivers and things that people sign or anything like that? That's a big question we get all the time. So I just was curious.
We didn't have anything that people signed. We were just upfront with kind of the expectations. So the hotel that we had it at, the tables, we could only have 6 people per table and the tables were all 10 feet apart. So we just put that information out there. And then we just realized, we have a lot of people that were comfortable coming to an in-person event. We had some that were not. And then we have those that are kind of in the middle and wanting to provide something for everybody.
That's awesome. And the fundraising elements wise, did you mix up, how you did that compared to the past, or were you able to do all the different things that you normally would?
We did a lot of the things like we've done in the past. So the silent auction stayed the same. And we still had people that were bidding online that weren't there in person. And then the paddles up portion of the night was also the same. And people that were not in the room, because we do a physical paddle raise for that. We don't do it electronically. But the people that were not in the room could just do that from their phone. And then the live auction was the trickiest, trying to, keep the energy of that in-person experience. But for those that were at home watching the live stream, we just had them call in and we assigned them a proxy bidder on the phone so that they could participate that way. So there wasn't a whole lot out there to kind of accommodate both at the same time. So that was how we made it work. And thankfully, we didn't have too many people doing that. So we were able to plan ahead and make sure that they were paired up.
And proxy bidders, we're seeing that more and more. I don't know, Ann or Kaya, if you've had any experience with those yet, but having someone kind of on behalf of a certain group or a certain number of donors that know that they want to bid on certain items, that's basically the proxy, right? Is they have a stand-in that's in the room that can raise a paddle on behalf of.
Yes. And we actually sent out a form in advance to kind of gather information from our virtual guest. Hey, would you be interested? If so, which items would you be interested in? And then collect their information ahead of time. And then with links to view the live auction items so that they could make that decision ahead of time as well.
That's very cool. And obviously with that information, you were probably able to get a gauge of who was maybe willing to donate a certain amount. Mm-hmm. Were there any just out of curiosity, were there any surprise donors that maybe jumped in there that you didn't expect?
Yes. I had one of our families that they have cell phone number. And so they just called me and wanting to do it at the last minute. So thankfully I was able to just kind of run up to the front of the stage and be there with the other proxy bidders. But yeah, I think the people that know us, some of our staff, they were kind of calling or texting and getting information. But for the most part, we were prepared in advance.
That helps with planning, right? And, so you just ran up to the stage, you threw your paddle up and said,
Yeah.
totally awesome. And I want to, jump to Ann here, because I know, Ann, you've had a few different virtual campaigns you've done in the last few months, but tell us a little bit about some of the decision-making process you've been going through and some of the maybe benefits and challenges that you guys addressed.
Right. So at Children's Home of Northern Kentucky, we've been having, we have an annual gala known as the Charity Ball every November. So, I think Kaya was talking earlier about like pushing the event back, when everything first started happening in March, we thought, well, we're going to be fine. Like we kept our event space reserved and everything. And then of course, by like May or June, we started getting nervous and started having a lot of conversations about, okay, what, especially as a behavioral healthcare provider, we're in the healthcare field. We, felt like we were going to be looked to, as somewhat of a role model or guide. And so we made the decision beginning of June to move to a completely virtual environment for our charity ball. Even though it was going to be in November, we weren't sure, what things were going to look like, but we just wanted to be able to plan as far in advance as possible and not have a lot of different contracts we had to cancel a lot, because with any live event, you have music, you have catering, you have a photo booth and all of those pieces. So that really helped us, kind of get a jump start on the planning for a virtual event. But there's two other local nonprofits that I help with their fundraising events. They're very small, almost completely volunteer run, and they don't have an established development office, but they, have been starting to get into the fundraising world. And for them, it just wasn't feasible to really pull off a virtual event like a gala like we were doing. So we tried our best to pivot to different opportunities for them as well, where they could still raise money. But, since they didn't have that built-in audience that's familiar with their event year over year, finding ways to still connect with their donor database.
That's awesome. And obviously there's quite a variety there, right, of the different organizations and the opportunities. What were some of the things as you were advising those organizations to try virtually that you thought, or you'd seen through Children's Home or whatnot that really kind of fit for those smaller organizations?
Well, so we're in Kentucky, so we have a lot of bourbon lovers around us. We are just a very bourbon-centric area. And so one of the things that is, and I always joke, at Children's Home in Northern Kentucky, we serve children and families, but we always have a lot of alcohol at our events, and but we handle it very responsibly, of course. And so one of the things that always consistently makes us a ton of money in the auction, a ton of money if we do it as a raffle, is bourbon. And so I had shared that insight with the other two, smaller organizations, and I was like, look, if you can come up with some good bourbon options or packages or experiences, I think there's some money to be had there, regardless of whether you're able to have an in-person gathering, a hybrid gathering, what that looks like. And so one of the organizations, New Day Ranch, provides equine therapy for children, and they went crazy collecting the bourbon and ended up being able to do several different packages, and we did it as a bourbon raffle. So because they're completely volunteer based, with the exception of their executive director, they don't have a lot of resources and a lot of time to put behind an event. But I mean, they made a really nice amount of money just selling tickets to win bourbon packages. And it was a great way for them to pivot, reduce the amount of time and effort, because they had other fish to fry, right? Trying to navigate a pandemic. Okay, well, how are we going to figure out this hybrid event? We don't have a full-time development person, et cetera. So that really was a great way for them to still make money without having kind of all of the logistical elements of planning a gala, whether it's an in-person or virtual environment.
And they were able to do those through technology, right? So they were able to potentially expand their reach. As a bourbon lover, I could have bought several raffle tickets, maybe all the raffle tickets, and won those items. So that's the nice thing, is that making that available for an organization that has a mission that maybe is applicable to other areas but doesn't have the reach currently. You found that application was really easy, right?
Absolutely. In fact, the executive director, when I pitched the idea, she's thinking about, oh, we have to have pre-printed tickets and we're going to be mailing stuff and people are going to be filling out stuff. And I was like, no, GiveSmart, we can run that all right through, the platform. And it was just a matter of letting people know, yeah, you do get a ticket number. You'll know what ticket number you have. Here's how you find it in your GiveSmart account. So when we call the numbers, you'll know if you won or not. And the functionality of being able, because we did that particular raffle, we did have a set amount of tickets we were selling to encourage people to buy. They wanted that exclusivity. And so it was interesting, we would hear donors saying like, oh, I noticed you sold another, like they were going out and checking how many tickets were still left. So it wasn't necessarily a full set it and forget it, but they were able, like once we got it up and running and promoted it, just that word of mouth kind of kept the promotion of it going.
That's awesome. So 2 observations I want to make there. 1, competition breeds fundraising, which I think we all agree, right? So that's awesome. And then I completely forgot to tell everyone in chat, we are putting links to all the campaigns. So if you do want to see an example, we'll look at these and talk about some of the elements, but the bourbon campaign is in there. It's already been pulled, so the winner's already been pulled. I tried, but it's too late. But the next one they do, you can register and be aware of the next one. That is awesome. I think there's a lot there, and we got a couple questions coming in that I want to just quickly address. So Ashley, we have a question for you. Did you release both silent and live auction items 1 week before, and how do you kind of explain the proxy? These are 2 very similar but different questions. The proxy bidding to those wishing to stay at home. So what was your communication to those at home to make sure they knew they could still participate?
Yes, we released the live auction first to those that we knew were going to be virtual. So they had links to see all of that. And then we put the rest of our silent auctions live about 2 days before. So the bidding was open and people could pre-bid and set their max bids before they even came. And then with the communication, we just exported the different ticket types and brought those over into our other communication platform to send out specific emails for each type so that everybody wasn't getting all the information and trying to figure out what ticket they were.
And throughout, once you released items, you started text messaging. And
yes. The first thing that went out said, our site is live, start bidding on the silent auctions. Yep.
And I think question for really all 3, how have you used in the virtual space, or how did you kind of communicate? Did you only do email? Did you right away start using text message? What were some of the ways you made people aware? Because one of the concerns people have is people aren't opening emails. They get 1,000 of them a day from just me. And, that's a concern. How did you kind of address that with communication?
Yes, text went to everybody for, kind of key points for whenever the silent auction was open. We did reminders for max bids. We did reminders for raffles. And then we did a separate one for just those that were not ticketed, which should have been everybody that was virtual, about how to do their paddles up via their phone. But that was really the only one that was different. Everything else was communicated via text to everybody, and then a couple of emails. But yes, text.
We do all the above. We did text, we did emails. We do a lot on Facebook to promote the event. So we create a dedicated Facebook event within our page. But then we also do main page post about it. And then an interesting thing we found this year, if we did an Instagram post or a Facebook post, a lot of people didn't see it. But if we did it as a story, suddenly like we were getting engagement. So I think that's been an interesting shift just in the last couple years of people aren't necessarily scrolling through feeds now, they're watching the stories along the top. So that was really interesting for us as far as promoting it. But you're right. I mean, the emails, my boss is a former high school teacher, and he said, his rule was say it loud, say it often. And I always kind of like roll my eyes. I'm like, oh my God, I hate getting so many emails. But I think we've probably all seen it, where it sometimes will take 4 or 5 emails before that board member or that coworker or that donor is like, oh yeah, I did hear that you were doing a charity ball, or whatever the event is.
That's awesome. Kai, same thing.
Yeah, we did a lot, kind of like Anne, we did a lot on social. We get a lot of engagement there. We do most of our pre-gala communication through email, and that's through GiftSmart and through our own platform, where we do reminders about different events in there. And day of, we'll do a lot of text messages, but we find that the best engagement comes from social and email.
It's awesome. Yeah, social, it's interesting. We've been looking at just the traffic, and you bring up Instagram, but also LinkedIn has been super popular, or more popular than before, because really it's a new place that organizations are posting that maybe it's not as frequent, so people are less likely to kind of scroll over that. I mean, Facebook has obviously continued to grow because more people are posting on it, but it's not the percentage growth that we saw with LinkedIn, which was crazy high. So really getting that activity. And I mean, Anne, you said it right. It's hit them as many times as you can with different messages and make sure they're well aware. I want to address something that's probably on many people's minds. Safety measures. So I know, Kaya, you're in the process of looking at a hybrid campaign. Ashley, you had yours, and you guys have had a few different scenarios with live components and all that. What safety measures are you currently taking? How have you kind of reviewed those? And what's your advice to someone who is considering a hybrid or even a live component, as we do know that some people are considering live, that they should think about as they're going into this planning?
For CHNK, we looked at our typical size for the event, which is about 450, 500 people, and our timing, which was November. So, we had a lot of thought around, for this year, will we be in a safe space? Will people feel comfortable as vaccines, increase and whatnot? And we just started doing some polling, honestly, and just started asking some of our major donors, our major sponsors for the event, where do you think your headspace is going to be? And what was interesting is some of the individual ticket purchasers we were asking were all about the in-person. They're like, we want to be in person. This is, we're itching to get at an event. When we started talking to our sponsors, which, I mean, I think we all agree, most of your money comes from your sponsorships, and at least the upfront money, they were like, oh my gosh, we love being virtual. We love not having to worry about filling a table. We love not having to run a tux, get a ball gown, etc. It was so convenient since everything's digital. We were able to have small parties at our homes. And so it really, for anyone still kind of on the fence, I don't know that there's a wrong decision to make. I think it's just finding what the best fit is for your organization, and quite honestly, where you are, since every state is kind of opening up their parameters for events differently. And for us, we are literally, like, I'm looking at the Ohio River in downtown Cincinnati from my office in Kentucky. Kentucky and Ohio have very different rules, but we are pulling guests from both sides of the river, and even some from Indiana, just because of how we're located. So just being mindful of all of that. And then for us, we have already made the decision to go fully virtual again this year, because we just felt that it made the most sense. The revenue we made last year in a virtual environment was right on par with where we were with in-person events. And just the feedback, we had a lot of positive feedback about it. That said, the other 2 nonprofits that I've been, helping in a kind of ad hoc capacity, they are all for the in-person event. Like, they want, but they're younger, they haven't done, I mean, CHNK's charity ball has been going on for literally decades. And these other 2 nonprofits were just getting their feet wet with fundraising events. So I think there's not a one size fits all approach to this, I don't think.
And Ashley, Kaya, I know, Kaya, you're in planning mode, but Ashley, what was your experience with the safety measures, and were there vapid concerns or?
Yeah, I think for us, the timing we're in a little different position just because we just got our event in last year, and then we had a whole year before our next one. And so by this March, people were ready to have an in-person event. We were also in Texas. And so there's a different level of concern. And we have the range of it all. We saw people that, don't care and want to come in person. And then we have people that are very cautious and, are still uncomfortable. And so again, just providing an option for all that everybody can feel comfortable with. And then from our end, making sure that we're communicating kind of what to expect for all of those different levels.
And does that factor in, Kaya, as you guys are in planning mode right now?
Yeah, so at our gala, we did do a sort of an in-person aspect to it, where we had meal pickup at our shelter. So we could still say hi to everybody and send them with their meal and on their way. But then we did Bark at the Moon last September, which is our in-person kind of walk. And we didn't have the walk aspect, the dog walk this year or last year. But we did have everybody come to our grounds and have food trucks and vendors and activities for the dogs. And we did do kind of a waiver on our GiveSmart page where it went over, regulations from the CDC, local guidelines that we were going to be a masked event, and just regular, common sense things like that. And we had really no pushback. Everybody was super excited and they felt very safe. We did a survey after and everybody felt really good about it. So we're actually planning that same event now for May, and we're going to be doing all the same guidelines. We are actually dropping local regulations on Saturday. So I'm a little nervous for that because people hear kind of the same thing, the whole range of everybody. Some people want to be in person, some people don't. So we're going to stay masked here at the organization and including at that event. So I'm not too worried about it, but it's, we're having everything on the website, all the rules, so people are aware up front.
That's awesome. And there's a huge spectrum, right? Everywhere is different. We're talking about 3 very different states and different regions. And the same thing I think resonates is communication and, giving everyone an equal opportunity to support you, whatever their comfort level is kind of how hybrid has been born, right? That's where that has come from. So I want to wrap up this section with what's coming. Take a couple minutes here between us of just what are we planning for going forward, and what are your thoughts for this year? Are you keeping a virtual element for everything? Are you going fully live, no questions asked, and that's it? I know we've talked about some of that, so just briefly, I know Kaya, you talked about Bark at the Moon is going to be similar with pretty much a live event with virtual components. Is that consistent how you're approaching it? And then Ashley, and same kind of thing?
Yeah, we are going to have the live aspect for that, and then champions fundraising for people who can't attend or don't want to attend in person.
Okay, so did you always have a peer-to-peer element to that?
We didn't, and champions has made it super easy. So we just have loved that. So that's been a really great way to incorporate it into our in-person events.
Awesome. And Ashley, what are you guys thinking for the rest of the year?
Yeah, we won't actually have our event until next March. So it feels like there's a lot of life to live before we have to get into a lot of those details. But after streaming it and that being a really positive experience for people at home, we're still trying to analyze all of our data to figure out, the cost of streaming and that production element. Was it worth it for those people at home? And then also asking those people at home, do you think you'll still be at home a year from now, or will you be ready to come back to it in person just to see what will be worth it and what people are really interested in?
Awesome. And then Anne, with the orgs you're working with, is it, I know you said virtual for the gala. Are you guys looking at any live components, or is it we're focused on the virtual elements, or at least incorporating virtual?
We're looking for the actual night of the event to be completely virtual, but something that we're hoping to capitalize on this year. Last year, we did a whole week lead up of different activities to the virtual event to help generate just more attention and hopefully more viewership. that went over really well. So we had a circus theme, and so some of our volunteers were reading circus themed books, like just recording themselves on their iPhones, and then that went up on social media at a certain time every night, things like that to just drum up attention. We got such good feedback about that we're expanding that out and looking at things that we can do, like one lead up event, mini event, micro event per month leading up to November to help continue promoting the event, start making money, fundraising for the event, but doing it in a capacity where people who aren't necessarily comfortable gathering in a crowd of 450 to 500 might be willing to go to a wine tasting at a local winery that we're partnering with in a group of 50 or 20 or whatever. So that's what we're looking at for CHNK. And then for the other two events, we're definitely going to be trying to do an in-person. They are much smaller events, they're at around the 150 mark and under. But then also looking at, Kaya mentioned the champions functionality, which for us was huge at CHNK. We made $30,000 off of that alone through the charity ball last year, a combination of online donations and then people who weren't necessarily comfortable making their contribution through the GiveSmart platform. They wanted to write a check. We got quite a few very nice checks that way, but as part of the champions feature. And so that's kind of been my, I have a lot of energy around that because it's a very easy way to raise money. And so for all three of the nonprofits that I've been helping, we're looking at ways to use that in unique ways specific to the organization so that it's not just a, hey, peer-to-peer fundraising, like a Facebook fundraiser. Like we want to do something more unique and specific to each nonprofit.
That's awesome. And just so everyone's aware, Champions that Kaya and Ann are referring to is the peer-to-peer functionality within GiveSmart. So it's for no extra fee, you can use GiveSmart to also fundraise through peers and have people fundraise on your behalf. So for Kaya, they had a campaign set up. I've actually been a champion for an organization. I didn't win the competition. I was made fun of for being bitter about it, so I'm not going to bring that up. But it is a fun way to kind of get people engaged on your behalf. So if you've done a peer-to-peer campaign, you can certainly check out that as part of the functionality if you have a GiveSmart subscription. So we're going to jump into some examples, and most of these we're going to kind of just touch on real quick. These are the campaigns that we've been talking about, but we wanted to give everyone a visual. So this is the virtual Big Top. This campaign was done in November, and just touch on a little bit of, obviously you have, click here to watch the record. I'm assuming this is now the recording for the campaign, and tell us about the page and kind of how you guys went about setting it up real quick.
Yeah, so one of the cool things what I think is really cool about the GiveSmart site is we're able to update the page as the event develops. So we were able to, whatever the main focus was at a particular point in time, we were able to put on the site. So initially it was promoting sponsorships, et cetera. And then as we got up to the event night, we made sure to have a link that took them to the other GiveSmart page. So we also streamed everything. I think Kaya said she used the GiveSmart platform for the whole piece. We did as well, worked with a local AV company to stream it. It was just a matter of plugging in a Vimeo link into the GiveSmart page. So we made sure people could easily get to that. And then we also, there you go. And then we also made sure that the digital program, so we still did a program so that our sponsors could be recognized. We still had our, welcome letter from the CEO and from our board of trustees president, junior board president. But all of that was contained right on that first landing page for the event, so that they had all of the stuff that they would have had at the in-person event right there in front of them, easy to access. They didn't have to worry about, a special link to get to the auction versus a special link to get to a Zoom, live stream or a YouTube live stream, et cetera. We wanted to keep everything housed in one place. And then we just had all of our auction items. We did not do live. So Ashley and Kaya, I'll be reaching out to you to get some tips on how you did your live. We just did everything silent auction, but we saw increased participation in the auction. Since using GiveSmart, we've used GiveSmart for about 5 years now. We've always opened our auction at least a week early, and this past year we actually opened it a few days even before that. And by like 4 days before the event, every package had an opening bid on it, which is always exciting to see. And that continued throughout the evening. And we offered people delivery. So if they were within a certain mile radius from our organization, if they won a package, they paid a delivery fee and we delivered it to them. And about 80% of our auction winners actually took us up on that option versus coming and picking it up in person. But we also did have a curbside pickup option for them as well. We did a couple pre-event things. Yep, there we go, the delivery. We did some pre-event auction packages just to kind of entice people and get them interested. You know, we partnered with a local bar to do themed cocktail packages. So they had just enough ingredients for 3 different drinks, and sold that as another way to raise some funds. That went really well. They sold out before the day of the event. So this year we're planning to continue that as well. But you know, we really try to make everything as branded for the event as possible and as easy to navigate as possible.
No, this is really awesome. And obviously we can see some of the different auction items that you have here as well. So a really nice way to utilize the page. And as you said, it's all in one place that can continually be updated. And then as we look at Kaya, your Wags to Wishes Gala, you also said, you know, obviously you use the page as kind of a hub for people, but also tell us a little bit about some of the things that you guys did and what kind of worked within the page.
Yeah. So I really was happy that we were able to take the live auction portion. I was a little bit worried that we were not going to be able to do that virtually. And with a little bit of tweaking it on the back end, we were able to do that really easily. So like I said, our auctioneer kind of guided everybody through the process. Most of our donors had already bid on things through GiveSmart, so they were very comfortable with it. But if not, it was super easy to learn. And they could just do that right from their phones while they were watching on their laptop. And even if they, for some reason, like if they lost their internet or the video went down or something like that, they could still see, you know, live results coming up on their phone and it was getting announced. So we had a lot of great participation with that, and we'll definitely do that this year where we have that option for, you know, people who are attending in person or at home. It definitely helped drive the prices up, and that's obviously the end goal of a live auction.
For sure. And I just want to show this site because I want to be mindful of time, but we can't not show how much fun you guys had with this of the doppelganger contest, which in 30 seconds, can you just give a summary of what you guys did here?
Yeah, we did a couple posts on Facebook and we just said, hey, does your pet look like a celebrity? And of course, everybody's like, yeah, my pet looks like so-and-so. So then we did a $10 entry fee. They would send us a photo of their pet and the celebrity that they thought they looked like. We put them together and then put them on the site. It was $1 to vote. People could then advertise their own pet on their, you know, on their own pages. And we, about 6 hours before this closed, we had somebody that was like, oh, I'm behind. And she had all her family vote, and like $700 later, she was the winner. So it definitely was very competitive, and it was really fun to see all those photos come in.
A lot of fun. And we talked about Bark at the Moon, so I want to just make sure we show everyone the Art from the Heart big late night show. Because Ashley, we have some questions to follow up with you, but I want to make sure we talk through just how you guys kind of built the page as well and went about that. We have a future episode coming up on homepage design. So if people have specific questions on that, that is episode 4. But Ashley, I'll let you kind of talk through because there's a section here that I want everyone to kind of see with the hybrid and virtual tickets.
Yeah, I think for us, it was just important to give all of the options on that homepage before they went to make a decision to actually purchase. Again, just because it was new for us, this was the first time that we had a hybrid ticket or virtual ticket. And then we also added the watch party host element. So for that, we thought, you know what, people still might want to experience this event as a group like they would at a table. And so we put together a little box that included some promotional materials and a little gift for the host. And then they could stream the event at home and have people over, and also could share our mission with their group before the event started. And then still have a little bit of that competitive advantage with bidding or things like that. So
That's awesome. And we have a bunch of questions coming in, but you can see here the team had specific live items and they had their auction items and so many things we can go over, right? There's so many things between the three sites that we can talk through. I'm going to jump into questions though, because I know there's a bunch and I gotta find, let's stop sharing. Want to make sure, you know, we get to these. So first question I have here is for really anyone. Did you run into a lot of issues with educating board members and donors about what would happen with the virtual event aspects? Could they really, I think the question is around, could they envision what was going to occur? Was it more of a challenge?
I can jump on that one. Our board, we have an older board. So I think there was a bit of a learning curve with technology and some general discomfort. So when you hear virtual, I think a lot of I know in the first board meeting, which we were holding virtually through Microsoft Teams last spring, and I said, I think we're going to be looking at a virtual event. There was a lot of like, well, what does that mean? Like, so you're just going to do an auction? I think that was kind of the general consensus was also you're just going to do an auction, and I'm like, no, actually, and that was the payoff, I guess, on my end of all of those headache conversations leading up to the event was after the event when they saw how everything came together and the videos and the cocktail hour before the official event stream and how all of the pieces came together. They were like, oh my gosh, that was so cool. I had no idea that's what you were thinking of. So I think it's one of those things, you don't know what you don't know. And so until you see it, for me, I'm a visual person. So I think a lot of them were also like that. And so until they saw what I actually meant, it didn't click with them what was actually happening.
Is that across the board pretty similar? Awesome. We'll follow up to that then, the results. So Anne, you mentioned earlier a little bit like revenue is pretty comparable. Kaya, Ashley, revenue wise, when you went this route, how did it relate to the past? Did it exceed? Did it meet expectations? What was the response there?
I don't know that we necessarily had expectations. I think it felt so foreign that we didn't really know what to expect. I mean, for us, we, the week of our event actually had a parent meeting where we cast vision for kind of the next steps, which, and we had a lot of our families that were ready for that and on board. And so we asked them, hey, if you guys are planning on doing a donation for this next phase of the organization, would you let us know in advance so that we can use that during the paddles up portion to gain momentum? And then, I mean, literally 2 days before the event, we received a matching grant out of nowhere. So our event doubled this year, but I don't know that that's because of anything that we did with virtual or in person. I think it was just kind of provision, and we've got a great community of people that are on board, and we're excited about the next step, regardless of what else was happening around the world.
Right. Nothing wrong with doubling. I think we're all okay with that. And Kaya, what about your results? I know you said the doppelganger had the $700 in 5 minutes kind of thing, but
yeah, that was kind of crazy to see. It was a lot of fun. As far as the gala went, we kept our ticket prices. We actually had raised the ticket prices from the year before, hoping, because we were changing venues and it was maybe a 60th anniversary, a big to do, and then all of that came crashing down. So we hadn't sold quite as many tickets as we were hoping. We were very close to our goal though, but our cost of the event was so much lower that we ended up raising, percentage wise, much more than we had hoped to if it were a live event. Not quite hitting our goal, but very, very close. And hoping, our live auction performed very, very well. I think better than it would have if it were in person. So I'm happy with the results of virtual and cutting the cost in half. That was great.
Yeah, and that's the big thing is looking at the net as well as how much you gross, right? It's crucial to be able to look at those numbers. So really glad to hear that. I mean, among everything that we're talking about, we have some great ideas, but love to hear that everyone is seeing success. That's obviously what we're talking about it, but also great that we can share that. And we have a question about the Bourbon Raffle. And I think this might be two parts because it involves alcohol and raffles. So with all the different packages that we talked about here of delivering like gift packages to the hosts that some of the groups did, with alcohol, did you have to have a license to distribute? And then vice versa with a raffle, was there any kind of gaming board licenses you had to get? Or obviously, I want to preface that every state in the entire country is different. So we have 3 different people, different states for different organizations here. There's going to be different rules, but if you can address how you guys kind of went about that, at least doing the research, I think that'd be helpful for people because raffles are that unique gaming board challenge.
Right. So we have a charitable gaming license that we just have year over year through the state of Kentucky that covers us on the raffle side of things. And what was interesting, and so far from what I can tell, they're not necessarily going to be taking a step back from it, but last year they really broadened how you could do your raffle and some of the parameters around it. They, had kind of been waffling on the selling raffle. You couldn't do a hybrid, so you couldn't do paper tickets and electronic tickets. You had to do one or the other. And then this year they were like, you have to do it all digitally because they didn't want paper tickets going around, and there was still concern about can COVID be passed through. So there were a whole bunch of things that changed last year, probably nationally in different states. I'm sure Kentucky was not an anomaly. But then beyond that, I did have to also register for a liquor license, both at the local level and the state level. But the cost of the license was minimal compared to what we were able to make off of it. And we actually had to apply for 2 liquor licenses because at least in Kentucky, it was only applicable for 30 days, but you could apply for like back-to-back ones. So we did 2 months. So we were able to start selling. We did custom bourbon bottles through we partnered with a local distillery that had like an event, like they etched the back of it for our event and everything. We sold it, of course, at more than what we were paying for it. But so we set our sales, our raffle ticket sales, our bourbon sales, and the auction and factoring delivery time and pickup time. So we did 2 months worth. And so everything had to be picked up by 2 weeks after our event ended.
Cool. Actually, Kaya, anything additional that you guys experienced with that, or is it that kind of summarize? Obviously, every state has a little bit of its own nuance.
We here in Utah have very strict liquor laws, which was another problem with this event going virtual, is that we can't do any of that online. It's different for a private function versus online. So we did see a drop from that. We couldn't do opportunity drawings. We can't do raffles. So we can't do that at all. We can't sell any liquor online. We can't have it in our auction items. So that really hurt us, which is another reason we'd like to get back to a hybrid or in person, because that definitely helps people spend money. So yeah, I don't know if anybody else deals with that, but in Utah, we have some strict liquor laws.
We did our wine pool only in person, so that we didn't have to worry about logistically trying to pull a number when you're not on site, but also so we wouldn't have to ship wine. And then for the watch parties, we could just use a service like Drizzly that we're doing, like a gift card. Here, you can order your wine and have it delivered, and it's not coming from us.
So definitely some challenges with some solutions there and ideas around that. We do have recordings of many of the campaigns. I know we've gotten a few questions there. We will share the campaign links and the recording of this afterwards. We have time for one more question, so I'm just going to jump to one that is, if you had one takeaway of this experience for each of you, what would you say, and like things to consider, and then things you maybe learned from from going virtual or hybrid? And I'll let you go first because you're off mute.
Okay. I think, the big learning for us was so what helped drive our decision this year was we felt we could have had an even more successful charity ball last year if we had made the decision right when the pandemic started to go virtual versus waiting and kind of seeing how things were going to go. So this year we didn't want, because it is, for an event of that scope, anyone who does a large fundraising gala, how that's a year-long kind of planning process. And so this year we, the volunteers who helped me pull it together, our C-level team here at the agency, we didn't want to waste any time. We just wanted to start planning, make that decision, virtual, hybrid, live, what were we going to do, and start executing against it. So that was kind of my big takeaway is don't wait too long to make the decision. Like just commit to the decision and then start executing against it.
Yep. And we'll go alphabetical. So Ashley.
Sorry, I got distracted answering something. What am I asking? Takeaways. I think communication and knowing your audience, knowing, and if that's even some pre-event surveys, kind of knowing what your community wants and is comfortable with, and then just communicating all of those things for us was the biggest thing.
Awesome. Communication. Kaya.
I think my biggest takeaway is just try everything once. If it works, do it again. Learn from your mistakes. And, like Ashley said, communicate, over communicate so that everybody, especially if you're changing something up, so that everybody knows what you're doing. But yeah, I was really happy with our events from 2020. And I would love to thank GiveSmart for that because we couldn't have done it without you guys.
Absolutely.
Well, we appreciate you guys sharing the story and jumping in here to share that with all the guests of the webinar here, because we got some more coming, some more panelists to join. This series is throughout the entire quarter. So there will be 12 episodes. You can see the upcoming topics as well as our upcoming monthly webinar around sustaining your mission and what's your recurring giving strategy. So please join us if you can. And if you are looking to get started and you have the desire to reach out to one of these fundraisers, feel free to do so. We will drop their emails into chat. They are more than willing to answer questions, and so are we. The GiveSmart team is happy to jump in if you're trying to solve for a unique challenge. And then please let us know if you're trying to go virtual or hybrid and have some questions. Follow up with us. You can find a lot of the answers on givesmart.com, but more than happy to address that. So I will wrap it up there. Thank you again, ladies, for joining, and thank you, everyone, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.